You collapsed? Like I care. Answer me immediately when I call you, you waste of space. My husband yelled at me without a hint of worry as I was being urgently transported to the hospital with our child in a dangerous state in my womb. Here we're starving, waiting for your awful dinner, and you're comfortably napping in the hospital. That's enough. I'm going to eat out with my parents, you make your own way home. I could feel my husband's fury through the phone, accusing me as if I had done something terribly wrong, making me shrink back in fear, thinking only of the child in my womb that I must protect. I tried to speak, but a sound from the phone stopped me from continuing. I am a housewife, currently pregnant. Previously, I worked as a cosmetics salesperson. I loved my job and took pride in it. I had many loyal customers who specifically asked for me, and I made decent sales, often being recognized within the company. The certificates and mementos I received are still carefully stored in my room, and I look back at them occasionally for a boost of morale. I met my husband at a mixer organized by a colleague, and we dated before getting married. Right after we married, I found out I was pregnant, and I wanted to use the maternity leave system to keep working. However, because there was a risk of miscarriage if I continued working, I had no choice but to quit. I honestly had reservations about leaving my job. But I resolved to do my best to support our family from now on. While I rejoice at our baby's growth with each hospital checkup, there are many days when my body doesn't move as I want it to due to the pregnancy, which frustrates me. It can't be helped, that's how pregnancy is. Don't rush, say friends who have been through childbirth, trying to encourage me. But my husband doesn't seem to think so. I must appear to him like a lazy, useless wife. Hey, where's my lunch? Just sandwiches? I'm sorry, I couldn't stand the smell of side dishes. I could only manage to make sandwiches. If it's not enough, could you please buy some side dishes at the grocery store? What's the point of being a stay-at-home wife? Yeah. I'm just not feeling well. Sorry. You know, you always use your pregnancy as an excuse, but being pregnant isn't a sickness, so stop making excuses. Fine. I'll eat lunch out. You deal with the sandwiches. At first, my husband was happy that we were having a child, but gradually his attitude towards me has gotten worse. He no longer comes with me to the hospital, blames me for not keeping up with the housework, and does nothing but berate me every day. He wasn't like this oppressive person when we met. But maybe he's tired, too. He's become a mentor to a new employee at work, apparently. He's been so busy, so probably his lack of patience has made him rough towards me. By the time this child is born, hopefully, his busy period will have settled down, and we can live happily as a family. It's going to be okay, it's going to be okay. I rub my slowly growing belly and reassure myself. Struggling with a body and a life that won't cooperate. I encourage myself and do the best I can, but my relationship with my husband doesn't improve. On top of that, my parents-in-law have started dropping by unannounced lately, and it's become a real source of stress. How can our son live in such a dirty place? What will you do when the baby arrives? How are you going to manage the hygiene? Right, honey? Yes, it is worrisome indeed. I'm sorry. After all the trouble we went to come here because we're worried, don't you have any hospitality? Alcohol. And prepare some carpaccios or something nice to eat. Come on, hurry up. I haven't prepared anything at home. If you had called, I would have prepared something. Enough with the excuses. Just go buy something and get it ready. Hey, why did you marry such a girl? I really wonder why I messed up choosing a wife. Hurry up and go. And with that, I felt the chilly air around me as I left for the store, heavily pregnant. This wasn't the first or second time. Every time the parents-in-law come, they criticize everything from cleaning to cooking, and my husband joins in. Even when I do everything I can, he never defends me, just adds more criticism. As I was struggling with my physical discomfort, I managed to pick up the items requested by the parents-in-law at the grocery store, and just as I tried to lift the bags, my vision went white and I lost consciousness. When I woke up, I was met with a stark white ceiling. There was an 4 needle in my arm. As my consciousness slowly cleared, a nurse noticed and called a doctor, who explained I had collapsed from overwork and had been brought to the hospital by ambulance. I was relieved to hear the baby was safe. However, I was strongly advised to stay in the hospital for a few days to rest. They said to contact my family later, and when I checked my phone, there were several missed calls from my husband. He must have been worried about me not returning from the store. After the 4 was finished, I moved to a space where I could make phone calls and dialed my husband. But the voice that answered after a few rings was full of anger. "Who do you think you are, ignoring my calls, you good for nothing?" I flinched at those words. "I'm sorry, I collapsed at the grocery store and was brought to the hospital by ambulance. They put me on an 4 and said I should be observed for a few days." "You collapsed? Like I care. Answer me immediately when I call you, you slowpoke. Stop it with the harsh words. It's bad for the baby's prenatal education." I was met with my husband's verbal abuse over the phone. He seemed quite upset that I hadn't answered despite his multiple calls. Not wanting our baby to hear such awful words, I instinctively cut him off. "Here we're starving, waiting for your awful dinner, and you're comfortably napping in the hospital. That's enough. I'm going to eat out with my parents, you make your own way home." Even knowing I had been taken to the hospital, my husband yelled at me without any concern or care. I could feel my husband's fury through the phone. I cringed in fear, not wanting my unborn child to hear such filthy words, and instinctively covered my ears. Then, before I could speak, the call abruptly ended. Not that I was expecting anything, but I felt disheartened by my husband's reaction and returned to my hospital room. As soon as I entered the room, tears started to fall, one after another. Once they started, they flowed uncontrollably. As I covered my face, a calm and kind voice asked, "Are you okay?" I looked up to see the face of a woman. A face I could never forget. The woman offering me a towel was a customer I had become close to when I worked as a salesperson. "Claire." "Yes, it's me, Chloe. I'm so happy you remember me. To meet again like this, it must be fate. I could never forget you, Claire." The woman, lively and laughing, was unmistakably the Claire I knew. Back then, Claire was a woman who had just gone through a divorce, with a child, lost confidence in herself, and hadn't worn makeup in years. I approached her as she aimlessly looked around the cosmetics counter and asked, "Would you like to try some makeup?" And then I applied makeup for her. Seeing her face beautifully made up for the first time in a long while, Claire seemed to relax and even shed a tear. I remember feeling a tightness in my chest as well. Gradually, Claire regained her confidence and became a regular customer. Though we had a customer-salesperson relationship, we had built a good rapport, but 3 years before I resigned, Claire suddenly stopped showing up. "I came back hoping to see you, Chloe, but when I went to your old workplace, they told me you had resigned, and I was so shocked." "You came all the way to see me? Sorry for bothering you. But you mentioned coming back, were you overseas?" "That's right. I actually run a business, and work abroad suddenly got busy. I haven't had American food in years, and I've missed it. So when work finally calmed down, I came back, and after visiting your former workplace, I ended up with appendicitis. And that's how I ended up in this hospital." "What? Are you okay?" "It's just the early stages, so I can take medication to reduce it. Plus, if I were abroad, the treatment would cost many times more, so I'm glad it happened after I came back," Claire said with a laugh, her face as radiant with that familiar dazzling smile. I couldn't help but smile back as if taken back to those years ago. My spirits, which had been quite low, were now lifted, and we found ourselves happily reminiscing about the old times. So, Chloe. You don't have to say if you don't want to, but why were you crying earlier? Claire asked with her kind smile. Although our relationship was originally that of a salesperson and a valued customer, I truly trusted Claire. Thinking that I could tell her. I shared that things weren't going well with my husband and in-laws. I don't feel confident about giving birth to this child in that house and raising them safely. I'm afraid they'll treat the baby just like they treat me. But now, I've quit my job and don't have any prospects for living alone, let alone with two. Well, I have an apartment available that I could lend to you. As part of my work, I'm managing apartments I built on land I inherited from my parents. What? I was taken aback by Claire's unexpected offer. It's in one bedroom with a separate bathroom and toilet, soundproof walls, and it's comfortable. Plus, it's close to supermarkets, grocery stores, and a police station, so it's safe and secure. Right now, there's no deposit required for rent. You can pay the rent later on as you settle in. It's an incredibly great deal. So, what do you think? Claire rattled on with such fervor that I couldn't help but let out a chuckle. Are you sure you can offer it at such a bargain? Of course. I know you, Chloe, you have a great character, and I know you'll keep the place clean, so you're more than welcome. I want to help my favorite Chloe. I'll take you up on that offer, thank you. A few days later. After getting the all clear from the doctor, I was discharged from the hospital without any problems. Claire, who had arranged the apartment over a single phone call while I was hospitalized, had made it ready for me to move in right away, and I decided to shamelessly take full advantage of her generosity. After being discharged, I didn't return home but moved straight into the apartment. Claire's apartment was a beautiful and comfortable place. I felt so grateful and kept wondering if someone like me really should be renting it and if it was okay to pay the rent later, but Claire just laughed it off, saying, "It's totally fine." I would sneak back to my former house during my husband's work hours to take out what I needed. There was hardly anything in the house that was mine after we got married, it felt empty. Claire even went as far as introducing me to a lawyer she had received help from. I was thankful for everything. My mind was completely made up about the divorce. When I told the lawyer, he strongly said, "Let's work hard on this," and it was reassuring. And the baby in my womb was growing healthily without any problems. Today's checkup was also problem-free, and I settled my hospital bill with a sense of relief and stepped outside. Then, "I've found you." My husband was lying in wait in front of the hospital. In a panic, I tried to flee, but with my pregnant body, there was no way I could run. "Stop it." My husband grabbed my arm firmly. "I finally found you. What's this about hiring a lawyer? Where are you living right now?" "Nowhere specific, just a safe place." As the lawyer said, "I want all further interactions to be through them, not directly." "You coward! Hiring a lawyer, how dare you get so high and mighty? And what's this about a divorce? What have I done to deserve this?" "That too, please discuss with the lawyer. I'm expecting compensation for the damage to my dignity and child support. Please be so kind." You wretch! We're going home." "What? What are you talking about?" "I have no intention of paying child support or damage, just so you know. If you come back, all of this will be resolved, that's what my parents said. Come on, let's go." "Wait, stop." I almost stumbled as he forcefully pulled my arm. But between the difference in strength and my heavily pregnant state, I stood no chance. I was helplessly dragged by my husband towards the car. However, at that moment, a young woman intervened, saying, "What are you doing?" She stood protectively in front of me. And as my husband's grip loosened, I took the chance to pull my arm away. His face filled with astonishment as he looked at the woman. "Audrey." I was surprised to see my husband and the woman knew each other, but they continued their exchange without regard for me. "What are you doing, Oliver?" "I'm just here to pick up my wife." "She doesn't want to go with you." The woman named Audrey confronted my husband. He was completely taken aback. "No, that's not it. My wife, she's pregnant and a little, no, quite moody. Come on, let's go home." "No, I'm not going back. I've already got a lawyer for the divorce." "Is that true?" "So, Oliver, you're trying to forcibly take your wife back home?" "No. I'm not." "Yes, that's what's happening." "Hey! What are you talking about?" My firm statement made my husband's eyes widen with anger, but the woman's expression grew even sterner. "You can't force even your wife to do anything." "Should I call the police?" "I'm going home, today." My husband seemed intimidated by the word police and glared at me as he left. Suddenly feeling tense, my body relaxed and my legs began to wobble. The woman quickly supported me. "Are you okay?" Sorry. I just felt so relieved that I went weak. "I'm calling a taxi right now." She efficiently called a taxi and helped me into it. "I'm worried, so I'll make sure you get home safely. I can't let you go to all that trouble." "It's fine. I'm already involved, and if it's not a bother." Her smile was comforting, and it felt strangely familiar. "It's no bother at all." "Then that's settled. And your address is?" When I gave her my address, her eyes widened in surprise. "I can't believe it. You live just below me, Chloe." Audrey, who had escorted me home and took care of me, laughed cheerfully. It was a complete coincidence, but Audrey lived just one floor above of my apartment. And what's more, she was a new employee at my husband Oliver's workplace, and he used to be her mentor. Used to be because his behavior was so appalling that she had complained to her superior and he was replaced. Oliver was known for being harsh with female employees, unsympathetic to issues like menstruation or cold sensitivity, and insensitive about relationships and marriage. It might sound bad to say this in front of his wife, but even when I was in severe menstrual pain and couldn't move well despite medication, he'd say, "Are you kidding me? That's just an excuse. Stop dawdling, ugly." Other than that, apparently, he had a habit of making snide remarks to Audrey, who would leave work on time after finishing all her tasks. "I understand. I've been treated like that since I got pregnant." So, it wasn't just at home. I should have known he was like that outside too, sorry about it. "You're not at fault at all, Chloe. The one to blame is Oliver." Audrey's firm declaration somehow brought tears to my eyes. A week later. Though we had only met recently, Audrey and I had become close enough to casually share dinners like friends. She told me that my husband had been ordered to transfer to a subsidiary company. Claire is a successful businesswoman who manages several buildings and apartments, and Oliver had boasted at work that he was handling Claire's account. However, Claire had suddenly demanded a change of contact, threatening to sign with another company if it wasn't done, leaving the superiors puzzled. Then, Audrey submitted a statement, recordings of the verbal abuse, and testimonies from female victims accumulated against my husband. Among the projects Claire was promoting was the construction of a women-only apartment building. It was deemed inappropriate for someone who disparaged women and stalked his wife to be in charge. Why did Audrey take such action? I was shocked when I heard it, but it turns out that Audrey was actually Claire's daughter. She had joined the same company as Oliver to gain social experience. Indeed, Audrey was so capable that she easily acquired a more advanced qualification than my husband had. Despite his teasing every time she left on time, asking, "Got a date?" she was diligently studying in any spare time she had. Audrey was determined to solve the workplace issues on her own without relying on her mother's help, but once she found out I was her mother's savior, she couldn't stand by and do nothing. When Claire found out that the problematic supervisor at Audrey's workplace was my husband, she said, "Don't hold back, lay out all the evidence." As a result, the choice between a husband with an abnormal amount of complaints from female employees and who lost a major client and a capable new employee who is also the daughter of a client and has advanced qualifications was clear, and the company readily transferred my husband. Since being moved to the subsidiary, Oliver's income decreased, and his workload increased considerably as he was the only one there with a qualification. Chloe, no matter how much Oliver tries to appeal to your sympathy, don't falter in your stance on the divorce. The words of a seasoned businesswoman and divorcee carried a different weight. I nodded firmly in agreement. After that, indeed, Oliver sent emails and messages through the lawyer, crying about how hard work was, how much he missed me, and begging me to come back because he admitted he was at fault. But I didn't waver in my decision to divorce, and with the strong backing of Claire, Oliver reluctantly agreed to the divorce. The damage and child support were to be paid in installments. I had dealt with my husband's issue, but another trouble was my parents-in-law. Especially my father-in-law, who was thrilled about the baby being a boy. I knew something was bound to happen. The tension-filled life continued. And then, my parents-in-law finally made their move. One day, as I was leaving the apartment to go shopping, the one who grabbed my arm was my father-in-law. "How did you find me here? Please, let go. I followed that complaint woman thinking to get back at her, and then saw you coming out of the same apartment." Complaint woman must be referring to Audrey, which was an awful way to refer to her because of some misunderstanding. "If you hadn't started with this divorce nonsense. Damn it. For now, just hand over the grandson once he's born. He's the heir to our family." My father-in-law, who was bigger and stronger than my husband, had a fierce grip. I swung my bag with all my might with my free hand, but he wasn't fazed at all. As I panicked about what to do, a sharp voice called out, "Let go of Chloe." With the voice came a chop to my father-in-law's arm, and his grip loosened. Hi-ya! In an instant, my father-in-law was sent flying through the air. It was a magnificent one-armed shoulder throw that I had never even seen on TV. I later learned that, during Claire's divorce, Audrey had taken up judo to protect Mom. She's apparently certified with the highest class and has won multiple national competitions. And still gets invitations from various places. "You all are the worst," Audrey exclaimed to my stunned father-in-law, who was not understanding what had just happened. What kind of people overlook their sons' misdeeds? What do you think of Chloe and the life in her womb? Chloe is going to build a happy home with her child. And you're trying to interfere with that. Are you monsters? The least you can do is not get in the way of her new start. As Audrey finished saying in disgust, I could hear sirens in the distance. She must have called for help before coming to my aid. Unbeknownst to me, my mother-in-law had been waiting in the car as the driver. Both parents-in-law were taken away by the police. My mother-in-law, perhaps contemplating her actions, kept her face down the entire time. Later, my father-in-law was arrested, and my mother-in-law filed for divorce. She wanted to re-examine her life, which had always been directed by others, and decided to return to the countryside. Oliver pleaded with his mother, saying he wanted to go with her and that he didn't want to work overtime anymore, but she resolutely shook off his hand. My mother-in-law asked the lawyer to tell me she was sorry and left an envelope with some money before leaving. That's what Claire told me. People sometimes don't know what to do after they divorce their husband. Is that how it is? Yes, that's what the experienced say. Claire said, handing me an envelope filled with money. I wonder why she entrusted the lawyer with this money. It must be an apology for what has happened so far, Chloe, and to help with your son's future. Don't hesitate to take it and use it. I had never expected support from my mother-in-law, who had been complicit in many ways. I can't forgive everything that happened, but I hope she takes her time to regain her own life. After the divorce was finalized, I safely gave birth to a boy. And then, my mother-in-law seems to be living in the countryside. I don't know the details because she's on her own, but she probably refused to live with Oliver. After my father-in-law was released, he found the house in his wife's name had been demolished and he frantically moved in with Oliver. There was a fierce argument about supporting and not supporting, which led to the police being called. As a result, Oliver's reputation at his company worsened, and he resigned voluntarily. Where he went after that is unknown, but child support is still paid without fail. Probably Claire and the lawyer know of Oliver's whereabouts. As for Audrey, her hard work was recognized, and she seems to have become a project leader at work. She's especially admired by her young colleagues and enjoys her work. Claire's projects, women-only properties and properties for foreigners wanting to settle in the US, are progressing well. As for me, once my son is old enough to be left with someone else, I plan to return to work. A high-end cosmetics store is set to open in one of the buildings Claire manages, and I've been invited to be part of the opening staff. Claire, I don't know how to return this favor, thank you for everything. Even after all problems were resolved, Claire continued to take care of me and doted on my son as if he were her own grandchild. Audrey also visits often when she has the time. Compared to the favor you did for me, Chloe, I haven't done anything significant. Thanks to you doing my makeup, I gained confidence in myself. I'm just repaying a favor to my benefactor. I still owe you more than enough. Oh, I can't wait for Chloe to return to work. Your magic touch makes everyone happy. Do my makeup again, okay? Of course, I will. I nodded, my eyes brimming with tears, as Claire laughed brightly. For my son and all my benefactors, I resolved to become as strong as them and protect my son.